So here's something I've been thinking about a lot. And honestly, it feels more important now than ever. The X-Men have always been about otherness. Not just superpowers, not cool costumes and fights in the danger room, but that deep, real feeling of being different, of being hated for who you are, of trying to find a place in a world that doesn't want you. And yeah, I know some people push back on that. I've heard it. Not everything needs to be political, or the X-Men weren't even created to be about civil rights. Which, fun fact, Stan Lee literally admitted was true. But here's the thing, it doesn't matter that they didn't start that way, because they became that way, fast, powerfully, and permanently. So today, we're going to talk about what the X-Men are really about, why that civil rights metaphor matters, why it includes white characters, and why if you strip that away, the whole thing falls apart. Let's get into it. So let's start with the basics. The X-Men are mutants, born different. That's the whole premise. They didn't get bit by a spider, they didn't build a metal suit, they didn't crash land from space, they were just born with it. And in the Marvel Universe, that means one thing. People fear you, hate you, want to control you, or erase you. And that's where the metaphor kicks in. Mutants aren't just about people with powers, they're a stand-in for anyone who's ever been pushed to the margins, for the kid who doesn't fit in, for the person who's treated as dangerous just for existing, for the people who aren't safe being themselves in public. Now, it's not always clean cut. You've got your blue telepaths, fire-breathing teens, metal men from Russia. Some of them look normal, some don't. But the through line, the thing that makes them X-Men, is that society rejects them. It doesn't matter how powerful you are, if you're a mutant, you're a threat. And that's the story. That's the weight they carry. Now, let's address the Stan Lee thing. People love to bring it up like it's a mic drop. Stan Lee has gone on record saying that the X-Men weren't originally intended as a metaphor for the civil rights or marginalized people. It was just a writing shortcut. He didn't want to keep coming up with origin stories for every new character, so he said they're born that way and moved on. Totally fair. That's how comics work sometimes. But here's what's crazy. That one lazy origin idea, it accidentally created one of the most powerful metaphors in comic history. Because the second you say they're born different and the world hates them for it, it stops being just a story about powers. It becomes a story about identity, about fear, about systematic oppression. Even if that wasn't the intent, that was always the impact. And over time, especially once writers like Chris Claremont got involved, the metaphor wasn't accidental anymore. It was the point. So let's talk about it. The civil rights parallel, the one everyone's heard. Professor X is supposed to be Martin Luther King Jr., peaceful, coexistence, education, progress through unity. And Magneto is Malcolm X, militant, fed up, believing that force might be necessary when people refuse to see your humanity. Now, is that comparison perfect? No, not at all. But does it reflect the tension in the story? Absolutely. The world of the X-Men is built on fear and violence directed at people who didn't do anything wrong. Governments hunt them, parents disown them, people protest them outside their schools. Sound familiar? Whether it's racism, homophobia, transphobia, albiism, insert your flavor of systematic fear here, the metaphor stretches. That's what makes it work. That's why it still hits today. Okay, so here's where people sometimes get tripped up. They see that a lot of original X-Men, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Iceman are white, and they think, well, that can't be a story about oppression or civil rights if the main characters are white, right? But that's missing the whole point. Mutants aren't just a stand-in for race, they're a stand-in for otherness, for not fitting into the box that society wants to put you in. And that can be anything, your identity, your body, your mind, your politics, your gender, your sexuality, your beliefs. You can be a part of a dominant culture and still be marginalized for some part of who you are. That's why the X-Men metaphor works even for characters who look like they should belong. Take Cyclops. He's a clean-cut, straight-laced white dude. He should be the most accepted person on Earth, right? Except his eyes are literal weapons. He can't control them. He wears sunglasses not to look cool, but because if he takes them off, he'll destroy everything in his line of sight. He's dangerous just for being himself. That's oppression, that's fear, that's isolation. It's not about being white, it's about being born different and being punished for it. Now, let's talk about the Chris Claremont era. because this is where the X-Men really became the comic about identity. Claremont wrote the X-Men for over 15 years, and during that time, the team became global. You had Storm, an African woman worshipped as a goddess, Nightcrawler, a Catholic German with blue skin and a tail, Colossus, a Russian farm boy, Wolverine, a Canadian scrapper, Kitty Pryde, a Jewish teenager, Jubilee, a Chinese American mall kid. The metaphor exploded. Suddenly, the X-Men weren't just about being hated for your powers, they were about being everything society didn't want to see. Religion, nationality, sexuality, body type, politics, it was all in there. And Claremont didn't shy away from it. He leaned into it. God Loves, Man Kills, a graphic novel from 1982, is a straight up about religious extremists using fear of mutants to justify hate and murder. There's no reading between the lines, it's right there in black and white. And here's the beautiful thing about all of this. Even though the X-Men didn't start off as a metaphor for civil rights, they became one. Not just through fan interpretation, but through the text itself, through the stories, through the characters, through the world they live in. The X-Men aren't static, they evolve, just like real conversations about oppression do. Over the year, we've seen mutants representing queerness, mental illness, neurodivergence, trauma, disability. There are stories about conversion camps, genocide, government, surveillance, forced medications, and social exile. It's heavy, but it's real. That's why it connects. You see characters like Rogue, who literally can't touch anyone without hurting them, and suddenly she's not just a cool southern girl with a streak in her hair, she's a symbol of people who feel like they can't safely connect with anyone. You see Magneto, a Holocaust survivor, and it's not just a villain backstory, it's a reminder that genocide is not fiction. The metaphor isn't clean, but life isn't either. So why does this matter? Because every time someone says the X-Men aren't about politics or stop reading into it, they're missing the entire point. These characters matter because they represent struggle, because they speak to people who feel unseen, because they show us what it looks like to fight for a world that's trying to erase you and still believe in hope. When you connect with the X-Men, you're not just connecting with superheroes, you're connecting with an idea that being different doesn't mean being broken, that being hated doesn't mean you're wrong, that even in a world that fears you, you're not alone. That's what they've always been about, even if they had to grow into it. So yeah, Stan Lee didn't intend for the X-Men to be a civil rights metaphor, but the world saw the truth before the pages even caught up. And that truth is what makes them timeless. But those are my thoughts. I want to know what your thoughts are down below in the comments section. If you like this video, hit that like button. And if you want to get more content just like this, hit the subscribe button. It always helps the channel grow. I will catch you guys in the next one. As always, peace.